Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice of radio, so today I'm going to be showing you Xerneas Prism Star. And I do need to start this video by pointing out that I was wrong. I am very quick to point out when I was right. I figure it's only fair to be equally quick to point out when I was wrong. You see, the Fairy Rise dummy booster pack we were shown had Xerneas on, and that seemed weird because the Japanese dummy booster packs always show the GXs, like this one from Champion Road, for instance. Or this one from Sun and Moon 7. In the UK, we occasionally get booster pack images, Jirachi and Giratina spring to mind, that are in fact Prism Stars rather than GXs. But in Japan, it's always been GXs. Well, ladies and gentlemen, not this time. And to be honest, we could have seen this coming, and a lot of you did, because of course, we've had Xerneas GX. Not only have we had Xerneas GX, we had it fairly recently, so I suppose the logical conclusion was a Prism Star. I still thought we were getting another GX, but the logical conclusion was a Prism Star, and no surprise that it has been revealed and translated by the lovely David Hochmann, Mr. RappelmannTCG himself, because, well, we like his translations, and we use others on occasions, but David's our favourite. So it is a fairy Pokemon. This means you're hitting weakness against Rayquaza and Ultra Necrozma, although really it just means you won't need a choice band when you're against those Pokemon. 160 HP is what we expect from Prism Stars, think things like Solgaleo Prism Star, but it's still fairly high, especially given you're a non-GX that can't have choice band used against it. Though there are plenty of Pokemon like Boswell and Lapras, for instance, that do naturally hit 160 damage. The weakness to metal is expected, but honestly, it's not making a huge difference here. Duskmane Necrozma won't get you with the little attack, but will get pretty much anything with the big attack, so it's not the most relevant weakness ever, to be honest, because mostly these metal Pokemon aren't hitting nearly enough, or they're hitting way more than they need to, even without weakness. The retreat cost of 2 is a bit of a pain, because it means Escape Board won't get free retreat after the rotation, and we have lost Fairy Garden, or we will lose it to the rotation. By the time this comes out, we will have lost it. However, in Fairy Rise, it's a fairy-themed set, we're getting some new tricks. I just showed you the fairy charms the other day that give you immunity against certain types of Pokemon. Link to that video in the description. And you can expect over the next couple of days for more fairy helping cards to be revealed. So the ability here says, once during your turn, when this Pokemon moves from your bench to become your active Pokemon, you may move as many energy cards from your Pokemon in play as you like to this Pokemon. Now this is immediately reminiscent of stuff like Tapu Koko GX, but it is not the same. Tapu Koko is a one-shot deal. You bench it, you move the energy, you pop it into the active. This could potentially be used turn after turn. You move it into the active, move all the energy onto it. Ah no, it's about to get KO'd. Retreat it, you'd have to discard the energy. Max Potion, you'd have to discard the energy. But then you can move it back into the active later and move a bunch of energy over to it. It's not an ideal situation, but bearing in mind this is a Prism Star card. You cannot recover it with something like Rescue Stretcher. When it hits the discard, it goes straight to the Lost Zone and does not come back. You can't get stuff back from the Lost Zone. That's why it's called the Lost Zone. So it's very important here to try and keep it alive, and the fact that you can use this ability time and again helps with that. It means you can retreat and max potion without having to worry about never getting the energy back, because this ability can be used over and over again. And if we look at the text, there is no fairy energy symbol. Ergo, I think David's translation here is correct. And you can move any energy cards over. Now, generally speaking, This isn't going to be terribly important, you're just going to be using fairy energy. But let's not forget that you could potentially use rainbow energy here. Let's not forget you could use counter energy here. This is a non-GX. If you're behind on prizes, you can go ahead and use counter energy. So if you've got a counter energy on the board, you can move a counter energy in a rainbow or a counter energy in a fairy, and all of a sudden you've got enough energy on Xerneas Prism Star here to actually get rolling with the attack. It doesn't allow you to pop it into the active without paying retreat or anything like that, like Tapu Koko GX does. But outside of that, I prefer this ability. We all know that Tapu Koko's ability is a good one. At the end of the day, you get to move the energy on when you get into the active. That alone is pretty good, but oh my goodness, wouldn't it be better if you had Fairy Garden still in the format? You obviously will in Expanded, so you could just free retreat a Fairy Pokemon and then move the energy over. That would be grand. And the attack here is pretty gosh darn good as well. Free energy, 160 damage. I like this a lot. Because you see, it's the same as Solgaleo's, except it's for 1 energy less. Now, like Solgaleo, you can't attack next turn. Dav is translated as cannot use this attack again, which may well end up being correct, but it doesn't matter, it's only got 1 attack. I suppose if there was a tool, and we have these occasionally, though we don't have them at the moment, that gave you an extra attack when you attached the tool, it would make a difference. At the moment, it doesn't make a difference. 160 is good. 160 is one of the big numbers at the moment, because it means non-GXs generally go up to 160 with Empoleon. We have a few exceptions like my boy Mamoswine, but generally speaking, 160 will KO any non-GX. You then add a choice band on there, you're up to 190, and it's like a who's who of relevant GXs. Buzzwole, Necrozma, Lapras, and as I said earlier, stuff like Rayquaza, you don't even need a choice band because they're weak. By stuff like Rayquaza, I mean Dragon GXs. Now, you're not quite hitting up to 210 to get a KO on something like a Zoroark, but that's okay. If you're in a pinch, you can always use a Professor Kukui. And then, of course, we run into the same problem we had when I talked about these fairy charms in my video a couple of days ago. You need Choice Band against GXs here. Non-GXs, you're fine, but against GXs, you need Choice Band. But then you want to be using these fairy charms to give you immunity against the type printed on it. Either Dragon or Psychic or Fighting. There are 3 to choose from. So, bit of a pain there, but you can't have it all. It's not the worst decision ever when you're like, oh, do I get a one-hit KO or have immunity against their entire deck? I've been in situations in this game where I've had more annoying choices to make. Now, the not being able to attack next turn isn't a huge problem, but it's bigger since Floatstone and Fairy Garden both rotated. Because now you're stuck in a situation of playing something like a Guzma, which to be fair we're all going to be playing, or maybe something like an Ace Roller, which would preserve the energy, although it would take them off the field, or even something like a Switch. You've got to play something like this. Otherwise, you're just going to have to discard the energy. And discarding the energy is not the end of the world because you can get it back on using the ability, but you're still taking the energy off the field. Now, in terms of getting the energy on the field, anytime you're accelerating fairy energy, this card becomes phenomenal. In a Gardevoir GX deck, this is an absolute slam dunk, do not even think about it, one of in every Gardevoir deck. It builds itself up using the energy. It's a non-GX, so it gives up 1 prize, and it hits the numbers on most, although not quite all, of the key Pokemon in the format. If you're playing Gardevoir post-rotation, you're putting one of these in. That is absolutely... I don't see why anyone wouldn't. I see no reason why you wouldn't. It's a great, great card, and it's a non-GX, so it gives up 1 prize. So it's going in Gardevoir decks. And of course with a Secret Spring ability allowing you to attach an extra fairy energy on the board per Gardevoir per turn, you're going to have the energy floating around to use with Xerneas. Then of course, and you will have to go into Expanded for this unfortunately, the Xerneas which has been in the format forever, by which I mean since X and Y base because it kept getting reprinted, with Geomancy. It's so upsetting that this has gone, because Xerneas Prism Break works so well with this. You just use Geomancy, get a bunch of energy on the board, and then in comes this Xerneas to hit 190. You're about to be KO'd, you Ace Roller it up, put something else in the active, pop it down, and then put it back in the active, and the ability gets the energy back. In Expanded with Geomancy, Xerneas, and Fairy Garden, it's a lot better. But even in Standard, it's going in every Gardevoir deck. I mean, to be blunt, it's going in every Fairy deck. In the same way that Solgaleo Prism Star really should be in every Metal deck, and Lunala Prism Star really should be in every Psychic deck, I feel fairly strongly that Xerneas Prism Star should be in every Fairy deck. The lack of Fairy Garden to retreat kind of sucks. And we do need energy acceleration. We're also losing max elixir, so you really are just stuck in Gardevoir decks for the moment. Although having said that, Macago GX has pretty good energy acceleration, so that could actually work potentially even better. I'll pop a link in the description, but once per turn you can discard the top card of your deck, and if it's a basic energy you can attach it to one of your Pokemon in play, which is really handy because one of the great things about Xerneas Prism Star here, you don't need to have the energy on Xerneas. You put Xerneas down and immediately move it into the active and get the energy on. You can store the energy on any Pokemon you like. We've had a lot of Xerneas in a short period of time, and most of them are just about to rotate. We're losing the Geomancy Xerneas, we're losing the Rainbow Force Xerneas. In fact, the only ones we aren't losing are the GX and the one from Crimson Invasion. This is a good Xerneas, like a lot of them have been. I'm giving it between 4 and 5 Wassies. I'm so tempted to give it 5 Wassies. And I do think it will go into every Fairy deck we have. The issue is that it's got a retreat cost of 2 and it can't attack next turn, and we're losing stuff like Fairy Garden and Floatstone, which is going to make it slightly more awkward, so I brought it from 5 Wassies to between 4 and 5. Obviously, we don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. But I want to know what you think about this Xerneas, but the good news is there's a comment section, so go nuts, but remember the rule, be nice. And make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do just that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.